Recent theoretical perspectives. 1.6. Describe recent theoretical perspectives on human development. New ways of understanding the developing person are constantly emerging, questioning, building on, and enhancing the discoveries of earlier theories. Today, a wealth of fresh approaches and research emphasis is broadening our insights into lifespan development. Information processing. In the 1970s and 1980s, researchers turned to the field of cognitive psychology for ways to understand the development of thinking. The design of digital computers that use mathematically specified steps to solve problems suggested to psychologists that the human mind might also be viewed as a symbol manipulating system through which information flows, a perspective called information processing. From the time information is presented to the senses at input until it emerges as a behavioral response at output, information is actively coded, transformed, and organized. Information processing researchers often design flowcharts to map the precise step individuals use to solve problems and complete tasks, much like the plans devised by programmers to get computers to perform a series of mental operations. They seek to clarify how both task characteristics and cognitive limitations, for example, memory capacity or available knowledge, influence performance. To see the usefulness of this approach, let's look at an example. In a study of problem solving, a researcher provided a pile of blocks varying in size, shape, and weight and asked school-aged children to build a bridge across a river painted on the floor mat. That was too wide for any single block to span. Figure 1.4 shows one solution. Two plank-like blocks span the water, each held in place by the counterweight of heavy blocks on the bridge's towers. Whereas older children easily built successful bridges, only one 5-year-old did. Careful tracking of her efforts revealed that she repeatedly tried unsuccessful strategies, such as pushing two planks together and pressing down on their ends to hold them in place, but eventually her experimentation triggered the idea of using the blocks as counterweights. Her mistaken procedures helped her understand why the counterweight approach worked. Many information processing models exist. Some, like the one just considered, track mastery of one or a few tasks. Others describe the human cognitive system as a whole. These general models are used as guides for asking questions about broad changes in thinking. Does a child's ability to solve problems become more organized and planful with age? Why is information processing slower among older than younger adults? Are declines in memory during old age evident on all types of tasks or only some? Like Piaget's theory, the information processing approach regards people as actively making sense of their own thinking. But unlike Piaget's theory, it does not divide development into stages. Rather, most information processing researchers regard thought process studied perception, attention, memory, categorization of information, planning, problem solving, and comprehension of written and spoken prose as similar at all ages, but present to a lesser or greater extent. Their view of development is one of continuous change. A great strength of the information processing approach is its commitment to rigorous research methods, because it has provided precise amounts of how children and adults tackle many cognitive tasks. Its findings have important implications for education. Currently, researchers are intensely interested in the development of an array of executive processes that enable children and adults to manage their thoughts, emotions, and actions. These capacities, variously labeled self-control, self-regulation, executive function, planning, delay of gratification, and more, are essential for attaining our goals in challenging situations. As we will see in later chapters, executive processes are consistent predictors of academic achievement, socially competent behavior, life success, and psychological well-being. Nevertheless, information processing has fallen short in some respects. It has been better at analyzing thinking into its components than putting back together into a comprehensive theory. And has had little to say about aspects of cognition that are not linear and logical, such as imagination and creativity. Developmental neuroscience. Over the past 3 decades, an information processing research expanded, a new area of investigation arose called developmental cognitive neuroscience. It brings together researchers from psychology, biology, neuroscience, and medicine to study the relationship between changes in the brain and the developing person's cognitive processing and behavior patterns. Improved methods for analyzing brain activity while children and adults perform various tasks have greatly enhanced knowledge of relationships between brain functioning and behavior. Armed with these brain electrical recording and imaging techniques, which we will consider in Chapter 4, neuroscientists are tackling questions like these. How does genetic makeup combine with specific experience at various ages to influence development and organization of the brain? What transformations in the brain make it harder for adolescents and adults than for children to acquire a second language? What neurological changes are related to declines in speeds of thinking, memory, and other aspects of cognitive processing in late adulthood? A complementary new area, developmental social neuroscience, is devoted to studying the relationship between changes in the brain and emotional and social development. Developmental social neuroscience emerged later than its cognitive counterpart because techniques for measuring brain activity are hard to implement in most social situations, where children and adults must move freely to interact with others. When researchers started to tap more convenient neurobiological measures that are sensitive to psychological state, such as heart rate, blood pressure, and hormone levels detected in saliva, an explosion of social neuroscience investigations followed. Active areas of investigation in developmental social neuroscience include identification of the neural systems underlying infants' capacity to intimidate others, adolescents' heightened risk-taking behavior, and individual differences in impulsivity, sociability, anxiety, aggression, and depression. One particularly energetic focus is the negative impact of extreme adversity, such as early rearing in deprived orphanages or child abuse and neglect, on brain development and cognitive, emotional, and social skills. Another burgeoning interest is uncovering the neurological basis of autism, the disrupted brain structures and networks that lead to the impaired social skills, language delays, and repetitive motor behavior of this disorder. As these efforts illustrate, researchers are forging links between cognitive and social neuroscience, identifying brain systems that affect both domains of development. Rapid progress in clarifying the types of experiences that support or undermine brain development at diverse ages is contributing to effective interventions for enhancing cognitive and social functioning. Today, researchers are examining the impact of various training and treatment techniques on both brain functioning and behavior. Although much remains to be discovered, developmental neuroscience is broadening our understanding of development and yielding major practical applications throughout the lifespan. Nevertheless, neuroscience research has so captivated the field that it poses the risk that brain properties underlying human behavior will be granted undue importance over powerful environmental influences, such as parenting, education, and economic inequalities in families and communities. Although most neuroscientists are mindful of the complex interplay among heredity, individual experiences, and brain development, their findings have too often resulted in excessive emphasis being placed on biological processes. Fortunately, an advantage of having many theories is that they encourage researchers to attend to previously neglected dimensions of people's lives. The final three perspectives we will discuss focus on context for development. The first of these views emphasizes that the environments to which humans have been exposed over their long evolutionary history influences development of many capacities. Ethology and evolutionary developmental psychology. Ethology is concerned with the adaptive or survival behavior and its evolutionary history. Its roots can be traced to the work of Darwin. Two European zoologists, Konrad Lorenz and Nico Tinbergen, laid its modern foundations. Watching diverse animal species in their natural habitats, Lorenz and Tinbergen observed behavior patterns that promote survival. The best known of these is imprinting, the early following behavior of certain baby birds, such as geese, that ensures that the young will stay close to the mother and be fed and protected from danger. Imprinting takes place during an early restricted period of development. If the mother goose is absent during this time, but an object resembling her in an important features is present, young goslings may imprint on it instead. Observations of imprinting led to a major concept in human development, the critical period. It is a limited time span during which the individual is biologically prepared to acquire certain adaptive behaviors, but needs the support of an appropriately stimulating environment. Many researchers have investigated whether complex cognitive and social behaviors must be learned during certain time periods. For example, if children are deprived of adequate food or physical and social stimulation during their early years, will their intelligence be impaired? If language is not mastered in early childhood, is the child's capacity to acquire it reduced? In later chapters we will see the term sensitive period applies better to human development than the strict notion of a critical period. A sensitive period is a time that is biologically optimal for certain capacities to emerge because the individual is especially responsive to environmental influences. However, its boundaries are less well defined than those of the critical period. Development can occur later, but it's harder to induce. Inspired by observations of imprinting, British psychoanalyst John Bowlby applied ethological theory to the understanding of the human infant-caregiver relationship. He argued that infant smiling, babbling, grasping, and crying are built-in social signals that encourage the caregiver to approach, care for, and interact with the baby. By keeping the parent near, these behaviors help ensure that the infant will be fed, protected from danger, and provided with stimulation and affection necessary for healthy growth. The development of attachment in humans is a lengthy process involving psychological changes that lead the baby to form a deep affectionate tie with the caregiver. Bowlby believed that this bond has lifelong consequences for human relationships. In later chapters, we will consider research that evaluates this assumption. Observations by ethologists have shown that many aspects of social behavior, including emotional expressions, aggression, cooperation, and social play, resemble those of our primate relatives. Recently, researchers have extended this effort in a new area of research called evolutionary developmental psychology. It seeks to understand the adaptive value of species-wide cognitive, emotional, and social competencies, as those competencies change with age. Evolutionary developmental psychologists ask questions like these. What role does the newborn's visual preference for face-like stimuli play in survival? Does it support older infants' capacity to distinguish familiar caregivers from unfamiliar people? Why do children play in gender-segregated groups? What do they learn from such play that might lead to adult gender-type behaviors, such as male dominance and female investment in caregiving? As these examples suggest, evolutionary psychologists are not just concerned with the genetic and biological roots of development. They recognize that humans' large brain and extended childhood resulted from the need to master an increasingly complex environment, so they are also interested in learning. And they realize that today's lifestyles differ so radically from those of our evolutionary ancestors that certain evolved behaviors, such as life-threatening risk-taking in adolescence and male-to-male violence, are no longer adaptive. Recently, evolutionary psychologists have begun to address the adaptiveness of human longevity, why adults live as much to 1/4 to 1/3 of their years after their children are grown. A common explanation involves the support of the grandparents, especially grandmothers, offer in rearing young grandchildren, which is associated with higher birth and child survival rates. Another emphasizes the scarcity of group resources that resulted when, in our evolutionary past, both younger and older females could reproduce with costs for child survival. In sum, evolutionary developmental psychology aims to understand the person-environment system throughout the lifespan. The next contextual perspective we will discuss, Vygotsky's sociocultural theory, serves as an excellent complement to the evolutionary viewpoints because it highlights social and cultural context for development. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. The field of developmental science has recently seen a dramatic increase in research demonstrating that human development and culture are closely interwoven. The contributions of Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky and his followers have played a major role in the trend. Vygotsky's perspective, called sociostructural theory, focuses on how culture, the values, beliefs, customs, and skills of a social group, is transmitted to the next generation. According to Vygotsky, social interaction, in particular cooperative dialogues with more knowledgeable members of societies, is necessary for children to acquire the ways of thinking and behaving that make up a community's culture. Vygotsky believed that as adults and more expert peers help children master culturally meaningful activities, the communication between them becomes part of children's thinking. As children internalize the features of these dialogues, they use the language within them to guide their own thought and actions and to acquire new skills. The young child instructing herself while working a puzzle, preparing a table for dinner, or solving math problems has begun to produce the same kind of guiding comments that an adult previously used to help her master culturally important tasks. Vygotsky's theory has been especially influential in the study of cognitive development. Vygotsky agreed with Piaget that children are active, constructive beings, but whereas Piaget emphasized children's independent efforts to make sense of their world, Vygotsky viewed cognitive development as a socially mediated process in which children depend on assistance from adults and more expert peers as they tackle new challenges. In Vygotsky's theory, children undergo certain stage-wise changes. For example, when they acquire language, they gain an ability to participate in dialogues with others, and mastery of culturally valued competencies surges forward. When children enter school, they spend much time discussing language, literacy, and other academic concepts, experiences that encourage them to reflect on their own thinking. As a result, they advance dramatically in reasoning and problem-solving. At the same time, Vygotsky stressed that dialogues with experts lead to continuous changes in thinking that vary greatly from culture to culture. Consistent with this view, a major finding of cross-cultural research is that cultures select tasks for their members, and social interactions surrounding those tasks lead to competencies essential for success in a particular culture. For example, in industrialized nations, teachers help people learn to read, drive a car, or use a computer. Among the Sinacanteco Indians of southern Mexico, adult experts guide young girls as they master complicated weaving techniques. In Brazil and other developing nations, child candy sellers with little or no schooling develop sophisticated mathematical abilities as the results of buying candy from wholesalers, pricing it in collaboration with adults and experienced peers, and bargaining with customers on city streets. Research stimulated by Vygotsky's theory reveals that people in every culture develop unique strengths, but Vygotsky's emphasis on culture and social experience led him to neglect the biological side of development. Although he recognized the importance of heredity in brain growth, he said little about their role in cognitive change. Furthermore, Vygotsky's focus on social transmission of knowledge meant that, compared with other theorists, he placed less emphasis on children's capacity to shape their own development. Followers of Vygotsky stressed that children strive for social connection, actively participating in the conversations and social activities from which the development springs. Contemporary socioculture theorists grant the individual and society more balanced, mutually influential roles. Ecological systems theory. Yuri Bronfenbrenner is responsible for an approach that rose to the forefront of the field because it offers the most differentiated and complete account of contextual influences on development. Ecological systems theory view the person as developing within a complex system of relationships affected by multiple levels of the surrounding environment. Because the child's biologically influenced dispositions joined with environmental forces to mold development, Bronfenbrenner characterized his perspective as a bioecological model. Bronfenbrenner envisioned the environment as a series of nested structures, including but also extending beyond the home, school, neighborhood, and workplace settings in which people spend their everyday lives. Each layer joins with the others to powerfully affect development. The microsystem. The innermost level of the environment, the microsystem, consists of activities and interactions patterns in the person's immediate surroundings. Bronfenbrenner emphasized that to understand development at this level, we must keep in mind that all relationships are bidirectional. Adults affect children's behavior, but children's biologically and socially influenced characteristics, their physical attributes, personalities, and capacities also affect adults' behavior. A friendly, attentive child is likely to evoke positive, patient reactions from parents, whereas an irritable or distractible child is more likely to receive impatience, restriction, and punishment. When these reciprocal interactions occur often over time, they have an enduring impact on development. Third parties. Other individuals in the microsystem also affect the quality of any two-person relationship. If they are supportive, interaction is enhanced. For example, when parents encourage each other in child-rearing roles, each engage in more effective parenting. In contrast, marital conflict is associated with inconsistent discipline and hostility toward children. In response, children often react with fear and anxiety or with anger and aggression, and the well-being of both parent and child suffers. The mesosystem. The second level of Bronfenbrenner's model, the mesosystem, encompasses connections between microsystems. For example, a child's academic progress depends not just on activities that take place in classrooms, but also on parent involvement in school life and on to the extent to which academic learning is carried over to the home. Among adults, how well a person functions as a spouse or parent at home is affected by relationships in the workplace and vice versa. The exosystem. The ecosystem consists of social settings that do not contain the developing person, but nevertheless affect experiences in immediate settings. These can be formal organizations, such as the management in the individual workplace, religious institution, or community health and welfare services. Flexible work schedules, paid maternity and paternity leave, and sick leave for parents whose children are ill are examples of ways that work settings can support child rearing and indirectly enhance the development of both adult and child. Ecosystem supports can also be informal. Children are affected by the parents' social networks, friends and extended family members who provide advice, companionship, and even financial assistance. Research confirms the negative impact of a breakdown in ecosystem activities. Families who are affected by unemployment or who are socially isolated with few personal or community-based ties show increased rates of conflict and child abuse. Refer to the Social Issues Health box on the following page for additional illustration of the power of the ecosystem to affect family functioning and children's development. The macrosystem. The outermost level of Bronfenbrenner's model, the macrosystem, consists of cultural values, laws, customs, and resources. The priority that the macrosystem gives up, the needs of children and adults affect the support they receive, the inner levels of the environment. For example, in countries that require generous workplace benefits for employed parents and set high standards for quality of childcare, children are more likely to have favorable experience in their immediate settings. And when the government provides a generous pension plan for retirees, it supports the well-being of older people. Look and listen. Ask a parent to explain his or her most worrisome child-rearing challenge. Describe one source of support at each level of Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model that could ease parental stress and promote child development. A dynamic, ever-changing system. According to Bronfenbrenner, the environment is not a static force that affects people in a uniform way. Instead, it is ever-changing. Whenever individuals add or let go of roles or settings in their lives, the breadth of their microsystems changes. These shifts in context, ecological transition, as Bronfenbrenner called them, are often important turning points in development. Starting school, entering the workforce, moving in together, marrying, becoming a parent, getting divorced, and retiring are examples. Bronfenbrenner labeled the temporal dimension of his model the chronosystem. The prefix chrono means time. Life changes can be imposed externally or alternatively can arise from within the person, since individuals select, modify, and create many of their own settings and experiences. How they do so depends on their physical, intellectual, and personality characteristics and their environmental opportunities. Therefore, in ecological systems theory, development is neither controlled by environmental circumstances nor driven solely by inner dispositions. Rather, people are both products and producers of their environments. The person and the environment form a network of interdependent effects. Our discussion of resilience on pages 10 to 11 illustrates this idea. You will see many more examples in later chapters. Ask yourself, connect. Is ecological systems theory compatible with assumptions of the lifespan perspective, development as lifelong, multidirectional, highly plastic, and influenced by multiple interacting forces? Explain. Apply. Mario wants to find out precisely how children of different ages recall stories. Desiree is interested in how adult-child communication in different cultures influences children's storytelling. Which theoretical perspective has Mario probably chosen? How about Desiree? Explain. Reflect. To illustrate the chronosystem in ecological systems theory, select an important event from your childhood, such as a move to a new neighborhood, a class with an inspiring teacher, or parental divorce. How did the event affect you? How might its impact have differed had you been 5 years younger? How about 5 years older? Extra reading. Social issues. Health. Family chaos undermines parents' and children's well-being. All of us can recall days during our childhoods when family routines, regular mealtime, bedtime, homework time, and parent-child reading and playtimes were disrupted. Perhaps because of a change in a parent's job, a family illness, or busy seasons of after-school sports. In some families, however, absence of daily structure is nearly constant, yielding a chaotic home life that interferes with healthy development. An organized family life provides a supportive content for warm, involved parent-child interaction, which is essential to both parents' and children's well-being. Family chaos is linked to economic disadvantage, especially single mothers with limited incomes struggling to juggle the challenges of transportation, shift jobs, unstable childcare arrangements, and other daily hassles. But chaos is not limited to such families. Surveys reveal that among US families as a whole, mothers' time with children has remained fairly stable over the past 4 decades, while fathers' time has increased. But the way many parents spend that time has changed. Across income levels and ethnic groups, employed mothers and fathers, but especially mothers, report more multitasking while caring for children. For example, preparing dinner while helping with homework, or reading to children while checking work-related emails. Mothers who frequently multitask experience greater psychological stress. Parental multitasking disrupts family routines, a possible reason that today's parents and children often say they have too little time together. For example, only about half of US families report eating meals together regularly. Frequency of family meals is associated with wide-ranging positive outcomes. In childhood, enhanced language development and academic achievement, fewer behavior problems and time spent sleeping, and in adolescent, reduced sexual risk-taking, alcohol and drug use, and mental health problems. Shared mealtimes also increase the likelihood of a healthy diet and protect against obesity and adolescent eating disorders. As these findings suggest, regular mealtimes are a general indicator of an organized family life and positive parent involvement. But family chaos can prevail even when families do engage in joint activities. Unpredictable, disorganized family routines involving harsh or lax parental discipline and hostile, disrespectful communication are associated with child and adolescent adjustment difficulties. As family time becomes pressured and overwhelming, its orderly structure diminishes and parental stress escalates while warm parent-child engagement disintegrates. Diverse circumstances can trigger a pileup of limited parental emotional resources, breeding family chaos. In addition to microsystem and mesosystem influences, parents with mental health problems, parental separation and divorce, single parents with few or no supportive relationships, the exosystem is powerful. When family time is at the mercy of external forces, parents commuting several hours a day to and from work, childcare arrangements often failing, parents experiencing excessive workplace pressures or job loss, family routines are threatened. Family chaos contributes to children's behavior problems, above and beyond its negative impact on parenting effectiveness. Chaotic surroundings induce in children a sense of being hassled and feelings of powerlessness, which engender anxiety and low self-esteem. Exosystem and macrosystem supports, including work settings with favorable family policies and high-quality childcare that is affordable and reliable, can help prevent escalating demands on families that give way to chaos. In one community, a child care center initiated a take-home dinner program. Busy parents could special order a healthy, reasonably priced family meal, ready to go at end day to aid in making the family's dinner a routine that enhances children's development.